You know what's really annoying when people go after Joe Rogan for interviewing Donald Trump? Now, I listen to different streamers, of course I do, and I listen to streamers who are left wing and both right wing, and I don't agree with everything they say. I just try to go somewhere in the middle where I think most of the truth lies. And if I can tell exactly what you're going to say before you say it, you lose a lot of credibility with me. So, for instance, people saying that Donald Trump wasn't grilled by Joe Rogan, and this is somehow an indictment on Joe Rogan's interview, and he's just partisan, he loves Trump, and all these things that are just completely untrue. I don't know how anyone could take that person seriously anymore, because I listened with an open mind, and I definitely think that Donald Trump said some things I don't think are true. I definitely think Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, but it shouldn't piss you off to just hear someone else who has a different opinion from you. And this is where we are with people just going in their echo chambers and just believing whatever their chosen podcaster says is gospel. And one thing I'd like to do on this YouTube channel, for the few people who do listen to me, I don't want you to know my opinion immediately before I even listen to something. I want you to listen and be like, even though I don't agree with him, I'm listening in good faith, and that's just his view on things. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm right and you're wrong. It just means that we have a difference of opinion on some things. And if people just keep saying that Donald Trump is a fascist and he's going to end America, to me, you just look hyperbolic and you're ridiculous. Because we already had Donald Trump for 4 years as president. If he didn't do the things he did with the Capitol riots, he's already a better president than George Bush. And people were freaking out, and the country survived George Bush. And if we have another 4 years of Donald Trump, things might get shaken up in our government a little bit, but I believe our democracy is resilient, and I think things will turn out okay in the end. Even if Kamala Harris gets elected, I believe it's the same thing. I think both these candidates are completely inadequate to what we need right now. But I also respect other people's opinions and people who don't necessarily agree with me. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to end America and she's a communist. I don't think Donald Trump's a fascist and he's going to somehow take over the U.S. government. Nor do I think he has an interest in that. And it's also sad because Donald Trump is leaning into having Tom Cotton as Secretary of Defense, which is like literally one of the biggest warmongers in our government. But if Kamala Harris gets in there, she very well might appoint Liz Cheney as Secretary of Defense. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's why I say so many times, I think that there's really no difference, at least when it comes to war, with any presidential candidate. And that's very disheartening at times. But I also try to listen to people who don't necessarily agree with me and hear them out in good faith. And often I think the truth lies somewhere in between. What's sad is no one seems to want to be persuaded of things. Like, I actually used to think that people who were pro-life just hate women. They don't hate women. They just have a disagreement on where life begins. And there's nothing wrong with that. I could still be pro-choice while understanding I'm not going to demonize my neighbor for being pro-life. But if you look at the internet now, it just seems to push most extremist views on both sides. That's what gets the clicks. Whereas I just do this for fun, guys. This shit's just really interesting to me. And if you just hear me out in good faith, you don't have to necessarily agree with me, but just know I'm coming at it from an honest place. And people don't seem to give people who are Donald Trump supporters that good faith, because over half the country's gonna vote for the guy. I don't think half the country believes he's a fascist. And I criticize Kamala Harris because guess what? I'm a Democrat, and I actually believe in holding my own party accountable. Donald Trump is who he is. More and more every day I look at it that the Democrats don't care what their voting base thinks. They think they're better than us. I'm not saying Donald Trump doesn't think he's better than some of his supporters, but he at least comes off as more genuine to me, versus Kamala Harris is one of the most scripted politicians I've ever seen in the modern era. And I think she's terrified to even go on Joe Rogan and actually have a conversation with the dude. Because if Kamala Harris goes on there, I will hear her out in good faith. Doesn't mean I'll agree with a lot of things she's saying, but it's just so sad that people are afraid to even have the conversation.